Rain hissed off the iron axle as Clara knelt beside Jonah's body, her hands coated in blood and mud. His eyes had already gone glassy, staring at the sky like he was still waiting for lightning to strike. The stagecoach lay shattered beside them, splintered wood, a busted wheel spinning slowly, crates spilled like gut. Thunder cracked in the distance, drowning her heartbeat. Clara had never screamed before. Not when her father was trampled, not when she'd lost her farm. But now, something broke. Not grief, something colder. Something that whispered, "I hunt Vemming." The bandits had come out of nowhere, faces wrapped in dust and bloodlust. They shot Jonah first. Took the silver. Took the horses. But they made one mistake. They left her breathing. She tore open the floorboard beneath the bench, fingers slipping on soaked wood until she found the rifle. Her father's old Henry. Still dry, still loaded. Clara ran a hand over the worn stock, each dent a memory. The rain came heavier now, needles on skin, masking the ache in her limbs. She took the saddlebag from Jonah's corpse, not pausing to look at his face again. If she did, she wouldn't be able to move. This wasn't mourning. This was preparation. The bandits would think she was nothing. A broken woman with no horse and no chance in hell. But Clara knew the land. She knew how to follow. And she'd spent 10 years driving this trail with eyes wide open. Dusk bled into the clouds as Clara climbed the first ridge, her boots slipping on wet rock, every step sucking in the thick red mud. The trail was clear, hoofprints gouged into the muck, broken brush, the occasional dropped item. They went careful, too drunk on victory to think they'd be followed. Thunder rumbled low, vibrating the ground beneath her. Somewhere ahead, the killers were lighting a fire, maybe laughing about what they'd done. Clara didn't care how many there were. She didn't care about the odds. She only cared about the sound Jonah made when he died, the way his fingers had twitched one last time. She wouldn't forget. She wouldn't forgive. From the top of the ridge, Clara spotted their fire, orange and careless against the storm-dark world. 4 of them. Maybe 5. Shadows moved around the flames, laughing, one of them waving a bottle. She crouched low in the wet brush, water trickling down her back, pooling at the small of her spine. The rifle pressed cold against her cheek as she steadied her breathing. These weren't just bandits. These were men who looked her in the eye before shooting Jonah. Men who had grinned. She whispered their faces into memory. The one with the gold tooth. The tall one with the scar down his neck. Her jaw clenched. She wouldn't rush in. She'd bleed them slow. The moon cut through the clouds just long enough to gleam off the blade. Clara sat beneath a twisted mesquite, dragging steel across stone with a rhythmic scrape, scrape, scrape. Her hands worked steady, but her mind was a firestorm. She thought about Jonah's stories, about how he'd once faced down 2 outlaws with a broken pistol and won. He believed in justice, believed in the law. Clara believed in none of that now. Not after today. She wasn't riding for justice. She was riding for punishment, the kind no badge would ever hand down. She touched the rifle, then the knife, then the wedding ring, still hanging from a chain around her neck. The wind moaned like a ghost across the canyon rim. Clara moved like fog, silent, slow, lethal. She circled their camp just before dawn, boots sinking in soft ground, the fire crackling low behind a ring of blackened stones. One bandit snored, a pistol resting limp in his fingers. Another lay sprawled near the horses, half-conscious, muttering in sleep. She could smell them, whiskey, sweat, smoke. Her heart thumped once, hard, then steadied. This was the closest she'd ever been to real killing. No stagecoach, no passengers, just vengeance and grit. She wasn't ready, but she went anyway. Because rage doesn't wait for readiness. It just demands a target. And she had 5. The first one never woke up. Clara pressed the blade to his throat, his snore catching mid-breath. For a moment, she stared into his slack face, so human, so pathetic. Then she slit him clean and slow, catching the blood in silence. No scream, just a twitch, then stillness. The others didn't stir. The fire popped once, casting shadows that danced like spirits over canvas and flesh. She didn't breathe until she was back in the brush, hands shaking, bile rising. Her stomach lurched, but she forced it down. The first life is the hardest, Jonah used to say. She hoped that was true, because she still had 4 more to go. Clara waited for the tall one to stand. He yawned, scratched his chest, turned toward the brush. That was his mistake. She squeezed the trigger. The crack of the rifle vanished into thunder, but the shot was clean. He dropped like a puppet with its strings cut, legs kicking uselessly in the mud. The camp erupted in chaos. Shouts, curses, scrambling limbs. Clara ducked low, crawled back into cover, the rifle already chambering the next round. No hesitation now. Her mind was quiet, lethal. This wasn't about fairness. It was about the debt they owed. And she was here to collect every ounce of it. The survivors panicked. 2 bandits crouched behind a crate, shouting over the storm, eyes wide and twitching. They hadn't seen her, just the flash, the death. One of them fired wildly into the night, the sound crackling under the roll of thunder. Clara circled wide, staying low, boots sucking at the mud. She could feel her breath misting, her pulse steady now. These weren't ghosts anymore. They bled. They feared. And soon, they'd fall. But as she lined up her next shot, something shifted, movement behind her. Too late. A boot crunched close. A hand grabbed her coat. And just like that, the hunter became the hunted. Clara hit the ground hard, shoulder first, pain exploding down her arm. The man yanked her by the collar, half dragging, half sliding her through thick mud. Her fingers flailed toward the rifle, just inches away, but he kicked it aside. She rolled, lashed out, caught him in the knee with her boot. He stumbled, cursed, raised a knife. His face was young, too young for this, but his eyes were dead. Clara reached for the only weapon she had left, the small derringer hidden in her boot. Her hand closed around it just as he lunged. A flash. A boom. He dropped, dead weight on her chest. She shoved him off and crawled to the rifle, soaked, shaking, but alive. She didn't make it far. A rifle butt caught her just as she rose, and the world exploded in white. When her vision returned, she was slumped against a slick boulder, blood dripping from her temple. 2 shadows moved in, guns drawn, boots splashing through puddles. The gold-toothed bandit sneered, soaked hat tipped back, rain streaming down his scarred face. "Thought you'd play hero," he growled. Clara smiled, teeth red. Not hero, executioner. She gripped the derringer again, hidden beneath her coat, and waited. 1 step closer. 2. Aye. The thunder masked her shot again. Goldtooth fell backward, a neat hole in his eye. The other turned to run. Clara was already up, rifle in hand. The last one ran. Stole a horse and vanished into the canyons, hooves cracking like gunfire across the rocks. Clara didn't hesitate, mounted the nearest mare, and gave chase, mud flying, rain blinding. The canyon lit up in jagged flashes, casting ghostlight on the stone walls. She fired once, missed. Twice, closer. The third shot clipped his shoulder, spinning him. He kept riding, but slower. She leaned forward, teeth gritted, wind howling in her ears. This one, this final bastard, had been the first to fire when they ambushed the coach. She remembered his laugh, his face, and she was going to ride him straight into the grave. His horse bolted after the fourth shot, reins flying loose, hooves vanishing into the storm. The bandit crashed to the rocks, rolling, screaming as he clutched his bleeding arm. Clara dismounted hard, boots splashing, rifle already trained on his chest. He backed toward a jagged cliff wall, breath coming in ragged sobs. "Please," he begged, voice cracking. "I didn't mean to." But Clara wasn't listening. Not to him. Not to anything but the storm and the thunder inside her own chest. She stepped forward, eyes locked, and lowered the barrel until it pressed just above his heart. One breath. One squeeze. And he was gone. She buried Jonah where the trail curved east, under the cottonwood tree he always admired. Rain still fell in soft sheets, but the worst had passed. Clara's hands were raw from digging, her body aching with exhaustion and bruises. She laid his coat in the earth first, then the revolver had always cleaned after supper. She didn't speak. There were no words left. Just silence. Just wind and wet leaves and the smell of damp soil. The storm had taken everything from her, but in that hollowed-out quiet, something like peace settled in. Not because justice had been served, but because vengeance had finished whispering. Clara rode slow, every bone in her body aching, saddle creaking beneath her. The storm clouds drifted west, thinning into golden streaks that caught the canyon's edge in morning light. The trail ahead was slick and broken, but she knew every curve, every twist. She didn't look back. There was nothing left behind her but blood and ghosts. The stagecoach was gone. Jonah was gone. But she still had the land, still had the storm inside her chest. And for the first time in a long time, she knew exactly who she was. Not a driver. Not a widow. A survivor, with no one left to fear. The town was still when Clara rode in, sunlight low, casting long shadows across the wooden facades. Her clothes were torn, soaked through and stained with the color of revenge. Mud crusted her boot. Her hat hung low over eyes that had seen too much. No one spoke, just the sound of hooves on wet boards and a distant windmill creaking in the breeze. Faces peeked from saloon windows and behind dry goods counters, watching this woman carved out of storm and silence. She didn't look at them, didn't need their judgment or their comfort. She tied the horse outside the sheriff's office, walked inside, and dropped 5 silver bullets on the desk. She rented a room upstairs in the old saloon. No one asked questions. No one dared. Clara stood in front of the cracked mirror, peeling off the soaked coat, the mud-caked gloves, the revolver belt heavy with empty chambers. Her face was different now, harder, older, something burned out and rebuilt behind the eyes. She lit a candle and watched her reflection waver, unsure if the storm had passed or simply moved inside her. She wasn't sure what tomorrow held. Didn't even care. All that mattered was that tonight, the dead were quiet. And the living knew better than to cross her path. Days later, Clara sat at the edge of the canyon, where the trail disappeared into the horizon. Her rifle rested beside her, untouched. A dry wind swept through the rocks, rattling dry leaves and stirring the memory of thunder. The land was still again, but she could feel the storm circling somewhere out there, not gone, just waiting. Clara didn't flinch, didn't fear it. She'd rid through worse and come out breathing. Somewhere in those clouds was the next rider, the next fire, the next wrong she might have to answer. She watched the sky turn dark once more and whispered,